Hi, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to Arts After Dark. I'm Sarah Beardsley, president of Arts Medford. And Arts Medford's a volunteer-run nonprofit that nurtures creativity, supports artists and the arts, and works to reflect the diverse community of Medford, Massachusetts. We make art more accessible to all by removing barriers to participation and bringing programs into the community. I want to welcome you all to Arts After Dark, which is a series of virtual events put on by Arts Medford. It was put on as part of MARV, the Medford Arts Resource Vehicle. MARV was an art center on wheels, which was bringing supplies and inspiration to local neighborhoods. Unfortunately, we had to retire MARV this week because he had too many issues that were not fixable. It was just way too expensive. And even the mechanic said, just no. I mean, Marv was an old bus, very old. So, but we're still continuing on with this series. And we're so glad you could join us. We're delighted today to be collaborating on this event with the Arlington Center for the Arts, which is a really great group of artists in the general area. Not all the artists are in Arlington. Center for the Arts obviously is in Arlington. And they have all sorts of wonderful events. If you haven't gone to any, definitely recommend. So Arts After Dark is supported in part by a grant from the Medford Arts Council, a local commission that is supported by the Massachusetts Cultural Council and the City of Medford, as well as Arts Alive Medford Foundation, the Massachusetts Cultural Council, and generous individuals. We also want to acknowledge that Medford is part of the traditional and ancestral homeland of the Pawtucket Wampanoag and Massachusetts peoples. The Mystic River is a modified form of the Algonquin name Missituck, meaning Great Tidal River, in reference to the Mystic's tidal waters. This acknowledgement offers recognition and respect to the original caretakers of this land and their descendants today, especially since the Indigenous history of our region has been largely erased for the last 400 years. So I want to thank you all for coming tonight, and I hope you enjoy this event. Tonight, I'm really excited. We have Jen Flores here. She is our artist who's making a presentation on her fiber art and mixed media. And you're in for a treat. What she does is just fabulous. It's so cool. So Jen, take it away.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Sarah. And thank you, Pam, also. And also Susan for contacting me and telling me about this. And welcome, everybody. My name is Jennifer Flores. I have a slide presentation that I'd like to get to fairly quickly because I know Pam, who also was a artist where we worked together on a particular piece. I'd like for Pam to be able to say a few words about what she did as well. I'm at Medford. I live in Medford, and I have participated in various events that Medford has had as well. So I have a studio in Somerville at the Vernon Street Studios, and that is primarily where I do most of my artwork, whereas my fiber works or my sewing I do here in Medford. So in between that, I work a regular job. So finding the time is challenging, but I guess I work good with tight schedules. So I don't know with all of you as an audience, what kind of interest you have, what brings you to the arts. I know what brought me to the arts. I felt that I just loved to draw, and that was how I started. And I would draw on everything. When I was a kid, I would draw on my dad's newspaper. So he would try to, of course, read it afterwards, but I had my little figures all throughout the columns and wherever I could. So from there, I was growing up in the 60s, and you had to learn how to sew. That was part of the female tradition. And that was something that I absolutely hated and let my mother know about it. Made her miserable for an entire summer. But at the very end of all of that, I discovered how much I really enjoyed it. So two different routes of creativity, and yet I'm still doing it, and I have hopefully found a way to be able to show how my creative process really is linked to both different creative endeavors. So I'd like to show the presentation, and I'm going to do a screen share. All right. All right, here I am. So this is connecting the process. And I have to say that Pam Shanley was the person responsible for helping me to see how I was able to connect the process. So, you know, it is always wonderful talking with you, Pam, and throwing ideas back and forth and joking. And somehow or another we make sense, and somehow or another we come up with great ideas together. So, and we will get to that. So I'm going to just kind of briefly go through this as far as that goes. My inspiration comes from just things that I see. And I love to people watch. When I was living in the Bay Area, I'd go to San Francisco, I would sit at the pier, I would draw people all the time. And I still do that whenever I can. I look at shapes, and those shapes somehow or another have a connection to something that I will pick up later. It will be like a mental reserve that I can use at any point that, I don't know, it makes sense. So I'm showing here a kind of tunic type coat. It can be used both ways. I like casual things. I like things that are easy to wear. I'm not somebody who particularly dresses up, so that definitely that influence has gone into the clothing that I make. When I'm looking for fabric, just like I'm looking around for inspiration, I want to look for texture. I want to look for the weight. There's a lot that goes into picking out fabric. Just thinking about how it's going to fall, you know, what it's going to be made into. So in my head, I have all these different things going on when I am going out looking for fabric. The same thing goes for when I'm walking in the woods and I'm looking at the different colors or the different textures. This sadly is my sewing room. And so at any rate, this is looking good for the moment. So bear with me. When I'm working, I'm going through like a maniac, pulling things out, putting things together, trying to decide what will work, both texturally, visually, color-wise, as well as weight. It's a lot like collage. So I'm putting pieces together. I don't take fabric and just make one thing out of it. I cut it, I change the pattern. Sometimes it's more obvious than others. As I said, as I'm walking around, I'm looking at things. Something will strike my attention, and it can, you know, obviously happen from nature. But the other thing is, I'm going to show my cursor here. This is a store display, which I thought was really cool. This is my granddaughter, and I found a really wonderful pizza parlor that was just college students there at Boise State just totally took it over. But it made such a wonderful backdrop. And over here, there is these torn watercolor pages. So I just thought those were really wonderful visuals that, at some point I will pick up and use. I make a lot of mistakes, and I also teach, and I find that a lot of times students are very frustrated that they made a mistake. Well, an artist makes a lot of them. And it's just something that you accept, and you find, like, just like if you get in your car and you get lost, you find a new path. And so that's kind of how I look at any process, creative process that I'm working. And here is, an example more or less of the just combining different fabrics together to find a connection, find a way to make them speak to one another. So similar to if I were tearing paper and working in that manner. Yes, I do use that old machine. Here's a kind of where I have the jackets and everything. From there, I want to jump into this a paper dress. It's part paper, part netting, and collage work. And this is something that both Pam had contacted me about making a piece for the equality show that was shown in 2020. What was really wonderful when working with another artist, or working in a classroom and you're talking to another student who you really like their artwork, you're just sharing your ideas and your vision. And I think that, I definitely, Pam and I have worked together before on different art pieces. And we do have a very strong respect and trust for one another, that we will find a way to be able to put the things together that to really solidify our ideas. Pam, do you want to add something?
Sure, just real quick. The show was called Created Equal, and it was in 2020. It was a volatile year, and it was co-sponsored with the Arlington League of Women Voters because it was the 100th year of women getting the vote. And I usually work in landscapes and plants. I don't do people, but I had a real strong sense I wanted to do something for this show, like to make a statement, but it was out of my wheelhouse. So I had some ideas, and I called up Jen and I said, I want to do something. It's kind of like this. It's got a little, I like the way the clothes they wear as suffragettes, and then finally we brought these ideas into some kind of three-dimensional reality. And that's where Jenny comes in, because she's such a great dressmaker. And we got together and we started, and I had all these images of women, of strong women, and then it evolved into more about equality for all women, not just about getting a vote, but just all the how we've been making progress. And then it evolved from there into, how about equality and respect for like all of humanity and animals in the world. So, but we tried to narrow it down to just women. So when you look at the sash, which suffragettes had when they were on their walks, marches, I mean, and they were all women who had a big part in getting the vote out. And then we found a couple, I think it was Rosa Parks and another suffragette, Alice somebody, and we chose some of their quotes, and we wove those quotes in. When you look at the dress, you can see some of the fan work on the back of the dress, and we wove that together. And Jen and I were like, well, let's try this. Well, I don't know if that's going to work. Well, let's try this. And we put it together. And of course we were working under a deadline, because that's when we work best. And it was just a fun process, and we really trusted each other, because it could have been madness, but because you have a friend that you can say, that ain't working, And the other was, yes, it is working. Now let's try this. So it was a really fun process. And I'm so glad I was able to work on it with you, Jenny. And that's it.
Thank you, Pam. I also wanted to add that when Pam started to take photographs of the dress and everything, and this is life size for a very small person, but it is life size. It wasn't until she started to take photographs that we really were able to see that there was so much more dimension to this than just a clothing piece. The photography that Pam did really started to speak in a whole different direction. Still in and around the equality and what these women represent throughout history, but also became a lot more of a foundation that was being built. And certainly on this last photo was the one where the sun is shining through, that all of these different strips that have quotes on it, just floored us. I mean, we were speechless for a change. So, all right. So I have been painting and drawing for a long time. And after a while, like all artists do, you start looking for new territory. And one of the things that I found was collage and assemblage. And how I got there was a paper that I wrote in grad school on folk art. And that made me really look. I mean, we all have seen this when we have traveled in various parts of the US and and other places where somebody has taken their backyard or their front yard and they have put different things out there. They have dolls, they have toys, they have things hanging off of trees, they've decorated it with lights. Of course, we all do that come the holiday season, but these particular artists find things, these particular people / artists find things, and what they do is they use them and they want the public to see it. So they're really sharing in the community. So as I started to do, not only find this kind of work, just going for drives from Massachusetts, my husband's family lives in Michigan, going from drives on the back roads, we would find various things. I would take pictures of it, and it really helped to fuel this interest that I had about folk artists. What you see here, this I got in Mexico. And it's basically it's an old license plate that was painted over, and it tells the story of a man who got struck by lightning, but he survived. And so he is doing an honor to God and to Christ that he made it through this terrible event. So at any rate, I just has both a little bit of humor. Most of these have a little bit of humor, which is wonderful to see and something that I picked up on. But it also has a personal event that is very important. Down here, of course, is the Day of the Dead diorama, and that's another area of art that often young children will work in elementary school, but I really like it. And so I have started to do the same, make these small dioramas that make a statement. So these are some of my assemblage works that I have, a whole series. These are not too large, about 5 by 9, maybe some are a little bit larger, especially when I start to extend off to the side. They are different subjects. I take a subject and I just kind of run with it. So this is kind of a mix of different pieces from different shows. This is primarily what I'm doing now, which my husband has been eating sardines, a lot of them, for a long time. And I got him to start saving them because they were just a wonderful little contained piece that I could explore. And I have to say, it takes me a long time to make something, to come up with a concept, to figure out how I want to arrange it, what's working and everything. And I thought, aha, a sardine can, this ought to be easy. Well, it's not, because it's small. Whenever you change size, you have a new problem that you have to kind of work through. And I find I obsess over these. Different things that people have given me, different things that I find, and yes, I do cut up dolls, all right, and other things that I might have that will fit in. So to make this shark fit here, I had to take off the tail, but I'm using it in a different piece. Some things I buy, thank goodness for Michael's. And when my husband changed what kind of sardines he was eating, that changed the size of the can and also how I was going to approach it, because I wasn't going to let him throw it out, or rather recycle it. So I still paint, and I do encaustic painting, which is melted wax. How I work is on a hot plate with these large crayon pieces, and it's much like oil painting. There's a lot of different ways that you can approach it. I've taken it my way, and that is to collage things that I have. This is an old Van Dyke print that was pretty gross looking, but when I put it together with a photograph of rose leaves and roses, I really liked how it popped out. So this would be the start of what I would be working with. I would eventually get to color and maybe eliminate some of the things that you see, to be able to have different passages in the painting. The same thing underneath it is a Van Dyke print. The direction I went here with the print was pictures that I had collected of Dante's Inferno. I also decided that that wasn't a subject I wanted to continue with, so I started to make changes and get more creative when using the wax crayons. So there's not only the background starts off, rather than me drawing it or painting directly on it, I collage the background. Then I start layering it with, oh, excuse me. Sorry about that. Then I start layering it with the encaustic crayons. Okay, down here. All right. So, I mean, really, I take the approach the same way. I put things together, try to judge if they work together, and arrange them. It is not something that it is intuitive, but then on the other hand, sometimes my intuition doesn't quite gel the way I have envisioned it. So, I pull things off, which is something I can do when I'm working with things. All right. If I'm painting in encaustic, I can simply take my hot air gun and scrape everything off and start from the beginning. So it is constantly, it's just something that until I'm happy with it, it's a work in progress. But it is the same kind of thing that I look for and what I strive for, and that is contrast, color that kind of works together, but then also color that is the opposites, texture, all of these things, whether it's clothing or painting, I still work in that same direction for both medias. And that's it. So I'm going to stop screen sharing and bring us back to everybody. I do have a link to that if you want to have some time to look at it, and more than willing to answer any questions people might have.
Does anyone have any questions for Jen?
This is Susan. I might, but also wanted to say, if you want to put the link in the chat, you can, and it will also, the presentation will be part of the video, so you don't necessarily have to go to it separately.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. So I have a question.
Sure.
Or three. One is there seems to be a lot of religious iconography in some of the things that you do, and I was wondering where that comes from.
Well, I went to a religious school, and my mother was religious, and so my brother and I joined her every Sunday. I have a different perspective than how I was brought up in a more conservative church-going background. So I find that there is a lot of strength in something to hold on to, and it doesn't have to be tangible, and that it can be spiritual. And I think I also like to play around with the religious concepts a little bit and poke fun at some things, which I think I had one series called Sinner or Saint, and I had done a lot of nudes, and they had some humor in it, but they also had other, the nudity was not about the nudes, but it was integrated in such a way that it became, is this person a devil in disguise kind of thing. So humor in my work, I do feel that there's a lot of things that I could, I don't know. I think that just adds an interesting element to what I do. So.
Thank you. Yeah. I was also brought up in a semi-religious household. My mother's side was religious. My dad's side was not.
Yeah.
That's what I mean by semi. And I sort of ran from the whole idea of religion. So it's sort of interesting to me to just ask questions about other people, like, how did you get where you are?
Yeah, I think that, I mean, it's a piece of who I am, and I respect that. But I also find that I can use it as really great material. So I try. More questions? Happy to talk.
Oh, I wanted to ask, when you start a piece, or do you initiate the idea with the materials you're working with, or do you actually have an image that you are working towards? Which comes first?
Well, I'd say that At first, if it is clothing, I will draw the clothing. I will come up with the style and make my pattern, or borrow a pattern. And then from there, I either have the material, as you can see from my first part of the slideshow, or I go out and I go for a hunt, which I kind of like to do. And that hunt could be local, or it could be wherever I happen to be, New York, or traveling, or on the internet. With art, especially now, what I do is I look at the materials that I have and I put them together and just kind of see how they fit. I knew what, looking the Van Dyke prints I had for probably a decade. And on one hand, I liked some of the parts of it, the imagery, but they were pretty poor as they were. When I started to work them with other materials, I found that they spoke well. The combination worked. So it's really about, for me now, when I'm getting ready to do an assemblage, or I'm getting ready to do an encaustic, is to put the pieces together and see how they intertwine. And then what am I going to do from there? Then I have to start thinking about color, and I have to start thinking about, is there anything else that I'm going to be, if it's encaustic, I'm going to be pressing into the wax and making it part of the layers. So, so it starts with things, with paper, with copies, with colored papers, or printed papers. Some I make, some other people do better than me, so I just take and rip and put them together as I see fit. Did that help?
Yep, thank you.
Uh-huh.
So somebody asked if we're going to be making the link available. And I just wanted to say that we will be making the link available to everybody who registered. If you did not register, you can still find it. And you can email us at marv.medford@gmail.com, and we can send you the link, or you can go to our YouTube channel, which is, help me, Sarah.
Oh, it's
Or something. And all of our videos are there, and we'll also send those to the link to all videos that we have done to all the registrants. So you can see all of our videos.
So I'm trying to put this up as in the chat. Hopefully I got the right link. Okay.
so you had mentioned that you are especially really working a lot on the sardine cans right now.
Mm-hmm.
So how often are you working on your other media? Because you have such a wide variety of things. I mean, with between your clothing and your encaustic, how do you decide which ones you've been really focusing on, or are you not focusing on one or the other?
What I do is I will start working in a direction, and I will stick with it. I will stick with it for months. So until I run out of something to say. So I have put all of the sardine cans off to the side and everything. There comes a point where I know I don't want to just put things together. they have to have a story. They have to have some sort of statement that I would like to make. So right now I'm working on encaustics, and I think I have about 60 panels prepped.
Whoa.
So I will be separating those and deciding, you know, which ones seem to work together as a unit. The panels are about 5 by 5, so they're fairly small. And how I do a presentation is once I finish a series or a train of thought, that I will put them up together into a grid. So oftentimes I have them in pairs. I'm trying to decide if that's how I want to do it, or is it going to be individual pieces or not. But I'll work on something for months, and sometimes about half a year, especially with the art. I find you know, that's going to be the most thorough way to take my idea than to kind of go back and forth a lot. I know it might look that way, but but I tend to when I go into my painting studio, it's set for a particular direction that I want to go, and right now it's encaustics.
Okay. Thank you.
Did the link show up? I put
No,
it in the chat.
nope. You
No.
might have
No.
sent it to one person. Did it say to everyone?
Yeah, okay, I'm gonna do that now. All right. Anything? Because I hit to everyone.
No, I'm not seeing anything.
Weirdly, no.
All right, let me,
You can send it to one of us and we'll,
yeah, I
Make sure
just
everybody
did.
has
All right. Yeah, publicly and directly, okay. Still nothing? That's weird, because I'm hitting everything. And it's, yeah, it's not showing that it's picking up. That's weird. Okay, I'm hitting host only. All right, we'll work it out. Sorry
Yeah.
about that.
It's okay. If you just email it to Susan or I, we'll get it out to people.
Okay, all right. Are there any more questions?
Yeah, I have one more.
Uh-huh.
You said you teach. Where do you teach, and can people like us sign up for courses with you?
Sure. Well, right now I'm working with middle schoolers during the summer and everything. I have run classes out of my studio, small classes. Primarily I've taken in some of my watercolor students and have worked there in the studio, which is in Somerville. I don't know if Medford is going to have a space or something kind of, I know at one point, way back at the beginning, there was the Medford Art Association also had a room that was rented out for teaching as well. I don't, but for right now, it would be my studio.
We might be getting one where we'll find out in September.
Okay, all right, sounds good.
Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us, and thank you so much, Jen. It was really very interesting. Really interesting. I love seeing all the different kinds of art that you make.
Well, thank you. It was really good to kind of settle down and take a look at everything and be able to articulate it, to write it out. And so very much appreciated that push, because I think all artists kind of think in their heads and they're off doing their thing. So I appreciate being able to stop and really kind of organized what I had and to put it into this presentation. So thank you.
Well,
I
thank
haven't
you.
done that in a
It
while.
was great.
Yeah, but it was great. Thank you so much.
It was really,
Everyone
really,
have a good
really
evening.
inspiring.
Yeah.
All the different things that you work on, and I'm like, oh, the whole world, I can do everything. If only I had time.
Well, I'm grateful to have the time, which is not a lot of time in between a job, but I'm grateful to be able to find the time and have that opportunity, because I do know other artists who have had to kind of phase that part of their life out, and just other things had taken it the priority, and so I enjoy it, and I'm, like I said, I'm glad to have gotten that studio. That definitely made a huge difference in being able to see what I could do with a space that it totally isolates me from having to do anything else. So that definitely makes a difference. And yeah, but thank you.
It's inspirational, Jen.
Thank you very much. Well, you're very kind. Because like I said, you should see how Pam and I work together. It's a fun frenzy. Can I ask this? What brings you to coming to this presentation? Do you take classes? Do you have your own, are you an artist doing your own work? No, I get to ask the questions.
Well, I am an artist, but I haven't been motivated very much lately to get anything done. So I'm trying to, I thought listening to somebody like you might spur me on.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I know that there are other artists that are at the Vernon Street who some just took that time to really go there and reconnect with making art after everything that we had to do and deal with during the pandemic as and everything, and it's sadly still going on. And some have been having a real struggle, because we all have a story to tell as a result of what happened over this past year and a half. So it is, yeah, I understand. For me, I find working in a couple of varieties of creative efforts really does feed one another. So I know that if I run out of a direction, I run out of that road, I can go on another path. And that does make a difference to have that accessibility.
Right.
And a deadline. I seriously only have a deadline when it comes to working in my studio. So I have to make really good use of it. No excuses.
Right. Deadlines are great.
You set
Thank
your
you
own
so much,
deadlines,
Jen.
Jen?
What was that?
You set your own deadlines, and if you do, do you honor them?
I do. if I only have 2 hours to go into the studio, I make sure that I set it up for 2 hours. So when I walk out of the studio, and then whether it's the sewing studio or the painting studio, I have a goal that I set, and I meet that goal so that when I come back, I'm ready to take it to that next step. And that really helps.
Mm.
So I know if I have it, if I'm in the painting studio and I'm doing encaustic, I only take out so many things that I know I can really commit to. And I get them to a certain stage, and then I put them aside, because at that point, I know where I have to take it from there. So trying not to overwhelm myself, especially with working with the different media, is really critical.
Mhm.
Great. Sound very organized.
I'm not. You should see what the table I'm sitting at.
I can imagine. Well, thanks you again. Thanks
You're
so
very
much.
welcome. Thank you.
Thanks, Jen.
Uh-huh.
Thanks everyone for joining us. I hope you all have a good evening.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you. Good night.